Hello city builders, welcome back to NouveauSprings on the Azure Gulf map. In the Sunset Harbor DLC, this is Hubbub. Great to have you here. Alright, so let me just give a quick overview of what's been going on the last 24 hours. In this stream on Twitch, it was about an hour and a half that I was working on the street layouts. So the last neighborhood I put in was an organic layout. I'm just following the topography here. And originally I was thinking that was where I would go over on this end. And for some reason I started looking at this, and I've been very much focused on staying true to a grid over here. And so these, you could see the rough contours of super grids, super blocks over on this side of the river, those last few neighborhoods that I put in. And I was looking at these, and the topography is just not that bad. And so I'm thinking, wait a minute, I can respect the topography and the general contours of the river here, and still keep that grid layout that I was working with. And part of the reason this was important to me aesthetically was because it helps to tie everything together coherently. Because we jumped across the river with that grid layout over here, and then and so I thought, well, I want to keep that going because that helps tie things together visually. And then similarly over here, I put this neighborhood in months and months ago, but you know, by keeping the orientation of the streets, and this is not a strict. This over here is not this is like 8 by whatever, because I'm leaving 8 tiles in between these roads so that I can get the maximum density, the maximum depth of low density homes over there. But by jumping across the road with that street and using it as the guideline for a 90-degree, these are 12 by 5 tile grids, which also lends a little bit of variety, because in some instances I can have 2 tiles here and 3 tiles here, so the lots are all variable. But it actually came out really well. And then, sorry, the other piece here in terms of the visual aesthetic is sometimes grids are coolest when they come crashing together like this from different directions. So I must have spent an hour and a half just putting in the grids, and I started zoning last night. And I was really pleased with how this came out. I've got some commercial in here because I have an insatiable demand for commercial in this game, in this city. And then I'm using the self-sufficient homes. These self-sufficient homes I am just addicted to. I think they're beautiful, the low density ones. And so we've got the grid continued. We have these houses and these grids and some commercial here. And you can see I've already started loading in the trees. So it's got a really pleasant look. And it's a nice transition from this little city center over here. We've got the high rises, then the mid rises, then the low density. And one of the things I knew I wanted to do here was I have this unpainted little stretch of park over here, and so I wanted that to kind of jump if I could. So it's not really a park, but I'm using the same vegetation, the same approach to laying out the dirt paths there, so that again it kind of ties things together. And then the decision I made last night, I was really struggling, and this is why it took me so long on this, and this is why I did it off camera. Initially, I'd set this up as a super block just like these, and I'm just zoning stuff in. And the problem is, over here, the irregularity of the buildings that grow in terms of height and size, to me, creates a really striking visual picture. But over here, for some reason, it just wasn't working for me. And so I literally ended up spending the whole day doing what you've seen some builders do, making sure I've got the same rows of houses over here. I'm sticking to mid what's the word I want? Mid-level in terms of elevation. These are not high rises. And I'm breaking the rules a little bit because there is a closer proximity of commercial and residential over here than normally I would allow. But it just wasn't fitting for me letting things zone in randomly. It just looked too chaotic and not aesthetically pleasing at all, given what I was imagining I wanted to end up achieving over here. And so this is what I spent most of the day on. You can see we've got the beginnings of a central plaza here. Obviously something's going to get placed right here, as well as we've got some other blocks that I've left open here. And then towards the rear we have some offices and more commercial. And then what I did, keeping in mind the health of the population, we had this nice big 13 by 13 block here that I was able to fit a services campus right in here. So we have our elder care, our child care, we have an elementary school with a small playground, and then we have our medical facility, our fire station, and police all over here. And so I think that you'll see in the end result that there's a nice, even though that this is a symmetric layout, there's actually some planned asymmetry here also with this neighborhood coming over here. Originally I was thinking about or planning to have this be a continuation of these, and then for some reason it just dawned on me that I could have the low density jump across the highway like this. And there is a little node of commercial right here as well. There's a park here. And so again, I'm really happy with how this came out. I still have to put some trees in here so that it has the same general appearance as over on this side. But I think this helps tie everything together also. It creates, a sense of coherence and continuity. And so part of what's going on for me too is I'm not building these highways through neighborhoods. I am to a certain extent building neighborhoods around these highways, but there's this very big picture macro scheme that's been in play ever since I started this build a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. When I first started this, the central battery was here, and then I built out the fishing industry, and then I extended that battery down this way, and then at some point we jumped across the bay and added a different grid structure here. But part of that process was knowing I wanted to have a clear arterial highway system set up and planning that into the city as it developed. And so very, very early in the build, and I was actually 100% vanilla at this point, I put in this sunken highway. And this is part of the macro of the whole build because, and to some extent, Denver's Colfax inspires me here because Colfax is the longest street in the United States that I'm aware of. And so I wanted to have like this central arterial or spine in the middle of the city, swinging through the whole thing, tying things together. And so I'm maybe giving myself more credit than I deserve, but this was really cool because so we're coming along, and we see it continuing here, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute, where's the highway? Because the highway's not actually here. I kept the basic geometry going. The highway sneaks underneath this little aqueduct or viaduct or whatever we call these things and goes underground. And then, but I keep the street system going, so it appears to have a sense of continuity. Now what's happening here is this does a nice big loop over here to this turbine. It comes up over here behind that neighborhood. And so very, very early on, the plan was we started with this big interior loop to help tie the city together. And then as we grew, there's this outer loop that emerged. It's kind of two loops connected to one bottom part. But then there's this trumpet over here that helps connect that loop together on this side, because this is the end of it, right? This is the terminus of the city. There's this really gorgeous interchange. Now, I think this was called the Songbird Interchange. This was originally like a trumpet with 1, 2, and then the third piece of it here, like an oblique trumpet. I added some more lanes for access and egress in order to add this interchange here so that it can enter into these neighborhoods. And then the trains are kind of nicely trailing along here. And then finally, as I've been building these neighborhoods in, I've been adding pedestrian bridges to tie everything together. So we're really not disrupting neighborhoods here. Everything is very nicely connected. There's that connection point there. There's this little tunnel that comes underneath the interchange that ties them together this direction. There's this overpass that comes this way. And then we have this little network of pedestrian bridges here. So from this neighborhood, we've got this little semicircle that comes, and so we're connecting over here. We've got another little underground pedestrian tunnel right here. And then this, I'm guessing you could say this is really not realistic to real life, but over and under the highway interchange, we come over here, under here, over the rail. It all works. I'm used Move It to make it pretty. And then this follows this diagonal across so that we can connect in here. And then there's this little spur here that ties over here. And you'll see that I've stolen a page out of Biffa's playbook. And added some park paths because there are so many Sims using these pedestrian paths that one cannot avoid making that kind of revenue each week. That's paying to maintain the network. It's helping to maintain the budget in this city. So all in all, when everything is said and done, I am satisfied with this. I think it looks beautiful. It doesn't, to me, in my eye, it doesn't look like the highway is disrupting these neighborhoods, because literally we have the spine of the city coming from here all the way down to here. What's left? What's left is the riverfront. There's this huge park system that needs to come in here. There are some unique buildings that need to come in to fill out the skyline. But the subject of this video is going to be to get this riverwalk finished, vegetated, aesthetically coherent from left to right. I want there to be an aesthetic coherence from this point over to here. And you will see why when it's done, because there are some unique assets that are going to go in here that I think are going to make everything tie together really well. So, shall we get started? I think I actually want to put in a couple of these assets immediately, because it'll help my eye So I do think I'm going to add these unique assets in because that will help me keep visual track of what I'm doing. So there are some historic landmarks that everyone in the world recognizes, I think. And one of them is the Tokyo Radio Tower. And the red is stunning, and that gives a visual clue of what the vegetation is going to look like. And this is tall enough that it competes well with these other points of reference in the skyline. When you back out, you can see I've got the beginnings of a skyline here with the observation tower and these residential towers. But this is not as monumental over here as this is here. And then this is not as monumental as this is over here. And so we have these explanation points across the skyline. And so this is a nice little exclamation point in my mind, all on its own. Over here, I want this to be a kind of ode to the future. I have been building the city for so long that it is literally year 3405 in the city. And wouldn't you think that by now we would have started doing some future kind of stuff? And there's this really cool asset that I found in the workshop. I may not be able to place it directly. I may have to place it somewhere else and then drag it in, because I do have everything set up so that it fits neatly and I will be able to place it. I'd never seen this before. It's by Quad. It's called Kitjawijit. Kitjawijit. And it's meant to be an arcology. It comes in the game as a unique building. But when you look up real close, you could see it's obviously it's conceived of as a residential structure, I believe. But it too is absolutely stunning. So we now have these twin points of reference. I don't think the Kitjawijit is taller than the Tokyo Tower. I don't think either overpowers the other. So there's that. What I want to work on now is the park. So we don't have as much of a riverwalk over here. We do have the key that allows pedestrians to transit on both levels. All right, now I didn't plop these with the idea that those were going to be their final resting place. I really want it to look like these paths are extending from those lines. So okay. I still have no mind for where everything really should go, although I think I want to leave this part of the plaza open. So obviously an info booth belongs close to that Eiffel Tower. And then, wait, is that info booth for yeah, okay. And then maybe some restrooms too. So let's find our restrooms. They could go right here, mirroring the info booth. And then this maybe could come over here. So now we're going to do something similar over here. I want... I could put a cafe right next to this library.
Official radio with Panamasculine. I aim to please your musical needs.
Now this part I was just gonna make into like your everyday run-of-the-mill average park. And I'm thinking we're gonna put in. So I've been taking notes from City Planner Place. He did some park building just a couple weeks ago in his Ultimate Beginner's Guide. And, you know, he's very parent friendly. So I think what I want to have happen here is this is a family, like this is a tourist destination. This is a family destination because this is a neighborhood. These are all residential buildings over here. And so, you know, these people may love living in the neighborhood near the Tokyo Tower, or they may rent their homes as bed and breakfasts, but they may also have kids. And so this is a family destination. We have a cafe. So I want to use some of the assets, and I think actually I want to add another path here. We have a library which can meet all Somalians of any age. We have a cafe which is going to be more maybe young people, but also people of my age or even older. Now maybe we put another cafe here on this side and mirror that one. Not sure why I'm into mirroring things today. But then we... Ooh, so a chessboard would be cool if it'll fit. Dang it, it's not going to fit. Okay, so chessboard, that's people of all ages. We have, I'm packing a lot in here. We have trampolines. We have a climbing frame. I think parents will appreciate this. Even tourists will appreciate this. Because maybe they spend the day at the Tokyo Tower and they're exhausted and they can hang out while their kids play. And that's straight out of City Planner Play's playbook, by the way. Okay, now, I don't think we want the trampolines in here. What we could put in here is a couple gazebos for people to just relax and hang out. And then I need to put in some vegetation. So I'm not going to do anything majorly... Although I think I may leave the vegetation till last. Because I can do the whole... I'm going to blanket the whole area with trees. But when everything is said and done, I think that's a nice little park facility. And it's open access. There's no gates that people have to walk through here. But that makes a nice little family space. Because there's something here for everybody, I think. Is there anything I've missed? We don't have room for the trampolines, I don't think. I'll put some tables down. Alright, so we'll come back for vegetation here at some point. Now, what do we do here? And then we've got this little park over here. I think this one's pretty much done. These plazas just don't belong here. I don't know if these plazas... So the problem I'm going to have is the other side. Let's just test this. The other side is at such a slant. Yep. So we're definitely not going to be able to have those plazas over there. Although, I need to extend the park. Because now we can see why I put this little plaza in here. Because I want people to be able to see the Kitjawijit as they are approaching from that main avenue. But since I put the diagonal, I don't think I can put the plazas in here because I put the diagonal paths in. Okay, now I did have these paths in here. The thing that I'm fixated on is I may have to use an invisible path for this, or just be okay with not having paths through here. Because what I'm seeing is I've got one more of these, and it actually might work perfectly right here. Now what I could do is... It just looked weird to have these paths coming right up to the street, but if I lose that path that I had connecting these together, no, that's not gonna be okay. I forgot I had that zoned. So check this out. We bring this path, this plaza. Right, still losing that path. What happens if I'm going to do a little move it sleight of hand here? If I grab these two nodes and push them straight back. They will be literally underneath. And then I bring this over. I won't lose that path. Then, if I hit Control Z, it'll bring them back. And the overlap is not. In fact, I could bring the plaza a little bit closer to the street. There we go. Now, let's zoom out and take a look. Oops, are they... Okay, let's... This may not be smart. I want these perfectly aligned, so I'm gonna use the lineup tool, and it's gonna throw them off the paths a little bit, and then I'll put them back. Oh, wow. How do you like that? They were already pretty well aligned. So now we're just gonna use Alt up arrow to push this back into place, and we have these plazas neatly lined up. Oh, how do you like that? Beautiful. I like this. I like this. I like this. Okay, we don't have vegetation yet, but that's all right. Now, this is feeling like it should be a lawn rather than quote-unquote park area. So maybe all of this gets path treatment like this and trees, and I don't know if I like how this is looking. It looks askew. It doesn't look like it's a conceptual mirror at all. So I think I want to take this path over here. That's decided. Now, let's try a couple more. I think that works. Still put trees in. Doesn't disrupt. We could put one more up here. It does not disrupt the paths. I'm sorry, the slope. Those aren't bad. That is not a bad viewing spot. Except for those. Maybe it's time I relocate those. I don't know that I'm gonna... Well... Oh shoot! I gotta fix my road. Okay. That's good. We just need to add trees. That is good. This is still undecided. Maybe it's just vegetation in here somehow. This is undecided. This... I think we have a few too many gazebos. Okay, so the last piece in all of this, before we get to vegetation, is what am I doing in the Riverwalk? We have park space over here. We have park space over here. We've laid out our plazas over here. Not quite sure what I'm going to do over here. Along the Riverwalk, though, I have placed another custom asset from the workshop. It's a brick road here, medieval brick road. And the reason I've done that is I want to. Okay, so I was watching some videos of the Riverwalk on the Seine in Paris, and all along the Riverwalk, there are places where people just stop and hang out, and they're now in this instance we can't really dangle our feet in the river, but they also had instances where there were little shops, and so this is a perfect space for me to drop a few of Mr. Miyagi's little tiny cafes. They're like 1 and 2 tile cafes. I've been using them all over the city because they will help bring traffic down onto the Riverwalk. So it'll, first of all, they'll create some aesthetic diversity and make it more interesting. But second of all, they'll bring Sims down, and so it'll look more like an actual river walk. So what I want to do is put a few of these down, not too many, as prelude to vegetation along the Riverwalk. So what's going to happen is people now are going to come walking. And unless I am forgetting anything, that's pretty much it for the walkthrough part of this. I'm still not sold on these buildings over here. Although they do add some variety, because I let these grow taller. So it's not all totally regimented. These might work, although we have so much over there that it's approaching banal. I do have one other idea that I've workshopped that people might totally dislike. But back in the day, my favorite game was SimCity. And the best part of SimCity, not really. Space already occupied. What's already in there? One of the best parts of SimCity are the Arcologies. Why is it saying there should be space? What? Oh, the road. Well, that's fascinating. So let's just move the road a little bit. So I'm always nostalgic, or often nostalgic. And this is going to be what makes me reminiscent of SimCity from the 1990s. Is these wonderful Arcologies. Shall I put in 1, 2, or 3? Two might be enough. I have space for 3. We have one more little spot here. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. It's end game. The city is almost finished. It is the year 3406. Why haven't we built up yet? There's asymmetry, even in a grid. We haven't moved in yet. So for the rest of this video, I think I will time lapse, because basically what's left is vegetation. I have put trees all through here, through this whole area, because you notice the way I have the trees here along the highway there. Now I'd avoided doing that over here because theoretically this is a heavily polluted area. So I don't know if trees, ground pollution is minimal over here. You could see it though. So trees might be problematic over here. We will find out. But obviously I'll time lapse all of that. I gotta figure out the right vegetation for this space, although I'm leaning toward a color because of the color of the tower. But that's about it. So I'll come back at the end of the time lapse and we'll take a look at everything. See you shortly. All right, city builders, welcome back. This is Hubbub. Hope you enjoyed that time lapse. I think we are pretty much finished with these neighborhoods. The vegetation in these super blocks, I stuck with mostly vanilla. I like the different shades of green in these trees. They correspond well with the aesthetics of the self-sufficient high-rise buildings. And then right here, this is that other park that we placed that pretty much has something for everybody. This is a family park. It might attract some tourists, but it's really meant to serve the neighborhoods themselves. Now, in the meantime, I did come in. You may have noticed something. This looked a little bit different in the time lapse. I just kept thinking less is more. And the other thing that's really important to remember is it's not what it looks like from here that matters. It's what it looks like from here. And the problem that I felt I was having was I had so much vegetation jammed in there that you really couldn't see the complexity of all the colors. And so I wanted to do just a little bit of thinning out to make it more comprehensible from above, because that does matter, but also more accessible from the ground level. It's hard to see that when you're standing right in it. Let's see if I can find a good vantage point here. All right, there, that's what we were talking about. So before, all you could see was the pink along the roadside, and now you can see all the colors through that foliage. And obviously we, as players of the game, it's really easy for me to become fixated on what this looks like from above, and that is important, because if I'm up on the observation deck of this tower, what I can see over here is relevant. But for me as a player, what's also important is what the Sims can see from the ground. So that was a consideration that contributed mainly to me going in and thinning all this out. Okay, so we've got that, and then over here I just made it. I saw some pictures a long time ago of the city blocks with the plazas on the interior of the block, and so I did at the last minute change my mind on these and eliminated a couple of these mid-rise towers so that we could have some these Japanese gardens in here, and then did some significant detailing in here with the tables, and that of course is reflected on the other side as well. One thing I did do offline was, again, it's a symmetrical layout, but I also want to emphasize some asymmetry because that makes it more interesting. And so I did eliminate one of those three Arcologies and added this block here where I'm pretty much letting the game randomly pick what zones in. And so that adds a little bit of diversity to the skyline, because these are all towers. I've actually created one little tiny district here so that I could unban high rises there. So that creates a little bit of differentiation of the skyline over here. And also some contrast with these commercial buildings sitting here to the side. I'm not sure that there's much more for me to review. I think I'm going to try to put together a cinematic at the end to just kind of show off the whole finished product. But this is it. This is it. All right, city builders. Well, I think that's about it with this build. Not 100% done with this city. There's still a little bit more work that needs to be finished, but I really like how this came out. And it was actually kind of a happy accident that I made that slope what it is, because now from over here, that's... Oh, I forgot to show the riverfront. Well, for crying out loud. Okay, so the riverwalk, I think, looks quite striking as well. I think maybe the only thing that's missing here are... I should probably add some benches. I've got those cafes, but there should be benches along the Riverwalk. So I'll come back in and add some benches in here. But I'm pleased with the color scheme. This has verticality. It's an interesting walk. I had to play a little bit with the brick road because you'll notice that the Sims don't actually walk on the road. They walk on the side of the road like they do every road, which is too bad that you can't see them walking on the brick. But when I first laid this out, they were actually walking through the bushes, and so I had to move the road a little bit to create some space, which actually I think enhances the aesthetics here. That's us bouncing on the stairwells. So let's see if we can grab someone. There we go. Now he's probably coming over to this cafe right here. Hey, he's gonna keep walking. Awesome. It's a nice view, if you ask me. Quite striking. Hey, he's gonna stop in here. Oh, now look at that. Okay, now I want to sit in this cafe. Maybe that's the thumbnail right there. Okay. All right, so well, I think that's about it, city builders. I'm really satisfied with how these neighborhoods have fleshed out. And I want to thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate your attention. This is Hubbub signing off.